On today's podcast, we're talking about the business case for investing in employee well-being. It turns out that it isn't just important for the care of our people and attracting them to our cultures that we're aiming to create, but it matters for performance too. Welcome back to the Thermostat with Jason Barger. If you're currently on a commute, a walk, or just a micro break in your day, glad you're making time to step back, to think, and to reflect on the next steps on your journey. I've never been more convinced the best leaders and team cultures in the world are the ones that make time to step back, breathe in good oxygen, and calibrate their thermostat. I hope today's conversation leaves you feeling grounded and inspired. Now let's dive into today's topic to engage our minds and hearts in order to authentically lead and create compelling cultures wherever we are in the world. Hey everyone, it's Jason, and welcome back to the Thermostat Podcast, wherever you are and however you're coming to the podcast today. Welcome back. So glad you are here. We're in season 9. We've got nearly 300 episodes. We're approaching very quickly our 300th episode, which is hard to believe. Thanks to everybody out there for the energy, for the excitement, for the growth of the podcast. If you're new to the podcast, welcome in. So glad you're here. Hope you'll go back. Just Google my name, Jason Barger, and whatever topic around leadership, culture, communication, trust, anything that you're thinking and as it relates to leadership, culture, clarity around mission, vision, values, any of those kind of topics. There's nearly 300 episodes. Hopefully you'll find something that resonates with you. I've also been joined by so many great thought leaders from around the world, friends and people, voices that I'm inspired by. So check out the past episodes. And even if you've been with us from the very beginning, I invite you to do the same thing, to go back and refresh yourself on some of those episodes because there's so much great stuff out there. My commitment to you, the listener, is that every time you listen to one of these, I want it to be an opportunity for you to step back in your own life, to think about the temperature that you're trying to set in your life and your work, hopefully to have some good oxygen breathed into you and have some takeaways that cause you to think and make some next adjustments in the calibration of your thermostat for whatever it is that you're focused on today. Before we dive into today's episode, if you'll do me the quick favor, if you'll rate the podcast 5 stars on whatever platform you're on, leave an authentic review in your own words. That's super helpful. And then obviously, every time you share the podcast, so if there's episodes that resonate with you, share them on social media, share them with your colleagues, friends, whatever that may be. And that way it helps amplify these messages and share them further in the world. Of course, hopefully you are subscribed already, but if not, do that as well. Thanks again. So grateful for everybody's support and that this continues to grow and spread. For years, we've heard the phrase reverberate across companies and organizations to quote-unquote, just do your job. That mantra has been a steady reminder to many people to not get stuck or distracted by too many things around you. Just focus on your job, your role, the job you're being asked to do. The phrase is well-meaning and I think comes from a good place. But the reality is we actually want more than people to just, quote-unquote, do their job. In fact, leaders and teams don't just want jobs to be accomplished or completed, but they want the jobs done well. They want the performance of the job to be high. And from the employee's perspective, studies continue to show us that people don't just want a job, they actually want meaning. They want to feel valued. They want to contribute to something greater than themselves. So it's not just about, quote unquote, doing their job, but it is about a connection and engagement around how they do their job. Gallup recently estimated that $322 billion of turnover and lost productivity costs organizations globally due to employee burnout. It turns out that how we approach our jobs actually leads to higher performance levels, and therefore, caring for people's well-being in the workplace isn't just a nice idea, it's critical. If all this wasted money, $322 billion of turnover and lost productivity due to employee burnout, then that means that how people show up to do their work and the health of the people is not just a nice idea, it's critical. In fact, there's a powerful business case for why strategizing for the well-being of our people is not only critical for the culture of our organizations, but crucial to the health of our people and, of course, their performance if that's what you're after most. So, on today's podcast, we're talking about the business case for investing in employee well-being. It turns out that it isn't just important for the care of our people and attracting them to our cultures that we're aiming to create, but it matters for performance too. So stay tuned. But before we dive into today's topic, let's pause, take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Many teams and organizations right now are realizing that they need to do both. They need to engage the minds and hearts of their people in person, where everyone in the room can experience the energy of congregating together and find clarity for the road ahead. And they also need to continue to find ways to engage the minds and hearts of their people virtually with those who are working remotely or at a distance. So, if you are in the process of planning your next team meeting, company all-hands event, conference, or culture summit, and are looking for support with a powerful keynote speech, facilitated team conversations that are the currency for change, or deeper development on leadership mindset and an intentional strategy for the culture you're trying to create, I hope you'll contact us at jasonvbarger.com, jasonvbarger.com. It is my privilege and our honor to partner with great people to provide support in these areas. We want to breathe oxygen into your leaders and throughout your organization so you can set the temperature you want for your culture. We look forward to connecting with you soon. I hope you'll contact us at jasonvbarger.com, jasonvbarger.com. It is my privilege and our honor to partner with great people to provide support in these areas. We want to breathe oxygen into your leaders and throughout your organization so you can set the temperature you want for your culture. We look forward to connecting with you soon. Caring for people, valuing people, empowering people to use their gifts to contribute to a mission greater than themselves is at the heart of every compelling culture that people want to be a part of. The old adage is true. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Once a foundation, a building block of caring is in place, everything else is built on top of that within a team or organization. Once people know and feel that their leaders care for them, they're a part of a culture that they know the organization cares for them, everything else is built on top of that. And as we've been reminding ourselves on recent podcast episodes about the reality that the culture is always being shaped, meaning culture is dynamic, it's not static, which means it's changing, growing, and evolving moment by moment every single day. The culture, again, the culture of our friendships, the culture of that you have with your children, your spouse, and absolutely on every team and organization you're a part of are changing, they're growing, and they're evolving every day. They aren't finished, and they're being co-created by every person within the cultural ecosystem. And culture is shaped, again, moment by the way we think, act, and interact. The culture, of course, first being shaped by the way we think. And so how do we think about our mission, what we're trying to accomplish, who we're hoping to be? How we think about things starts to shape the experience we have with the relationships around us. It starts in our own minds. And then from that thinking, the culture is shaped by whether our actions back up that thinking or give people another experience. And lastly, every little interaction with those around us is either shaping the future culture that we want or is counter to what we say we want. And so again, culture is dynamic and shaped moment by the way everyone in the cultural ecosystem thinks, acts, and interacts. And on a recent episode, a podcast episode, we talked about this kind of focusing our shifting of our minds from thermometer thinking, which is purely reactionary, to thermostat thinking, which is proactive. If you didn't hear that episode, I invite you to go and check that one out. But that means that every moment of every day, we're aiming to be intentional about how we do what we do. So let's connect the dots of this, what we know about culture shaping, And what we know about these stats as it relates to caring for people and the well-being of employees within our organizations. And let's look at that recent study. So as we look at that recent Gallup, research that where $322 billion is lost globally due to turnover and employee burnout, the business case for caring for people and building compelling cultures is obvious. And you think about how that plays in the way that we think, act, and interact every day of what kind of culture would we want to build that would be counter to that. And we also know that organizations that have a higher level of engagement with their people, again, it doesn't mean that an organization is perfect. No organization is, no leader is perfect. But the ones that have a higher level of engagement, which means more days than not, people feel cared for and their mind and heart are aligned on the mission they are trying to contribute into the future. Those organizations with higher levels of engagement report upwards of 22% higher productivity and performance metrics. Obviously, when people are not healthy or are disengaged in the workplace, it leads to higher sick days, lower performance, and higher turnover rates. The impact of those are massive for people, individual people's lives, but also for the bottom line of all organizations. And so if you're somebody who needs the business case for creating these types of cultures, as you think about those kind of that study and those numbers, why would we not want to get in the business of caring for our people and trying to think strategically about well-being of our people, not only because it'll help us retain and attract the very best talent in the world, and it'll care for people that helps them be alive in their life and their work, but it also leads to about a 22% higher productivity and performance metrics. So there's a business case for us actually caring about well-being, not just because it's the right thing to do, but also for the bottom line of your business. At a high level, I'll share 4 things that I see the best leaders and organizational cultures are doing to help prioritize well-being and a culture that supports people. The 4 things these aren't the only 4, but these are 4 things that I notice across organizations that are doing this well and where people would suggest that they feel cared for and they're a part of a culture that does a good job with well-being. Doesn't mean their organization, of course, is perfect, but places that would report this higher level of well-being. These are 4 characteristics I see. 1, they have meaningful connection and purpose. From the hiring process to the onboarding process and throughout their seasoning within their culture, these types of leaders and organizations engage the minds and hearts of their people. The work that they do isn't transactional in nature, but they think about it as transformational. The purpose of the organization is rooted in the center, and people rally together. And in that effort, they form a connection with the people around them so that they don't feel like they are alone or isolated on the journey. People that do feel alone and isolated in their work to quote unquote just do their job tend to have higher levels of disengagement. And then, their own mental health and well-being suffers. So meaningful connection and purpose is one of the things I see across organizations as that are prioritizing this kind of well-being. A couple other things are clarity on mission and contribution. Clarity on mission and contribution. The best places help people see direct sight lines on how their particular role and contribution impacts the mission. So not just, quote unquote, go in this cubicle and do your job, but real clarity around that role that you perform, that job you're performing. They can see directly and see the sight line of how that's making a contribution and impacting the mission. It isn't left to assumption, but it's valued and it's celebrated so that the people feel like they matter, because they do. And when people begin to feel like they are meaningless or just an insignificant piece in a huge operation, their own self-worth suffers. Motivation wanes and connection is lost, and therefore leads to disengagement and, again, in higher levels of people not feeling cared for and suffering in that way. And oftentimes then to leaving to go search for another organization. So higher turnover. The third thing I see is honoring health and performance over time. The best places recognize and celebrate the connection between healthy minds, bodies, and spirit and performance. They see the connection that people perform better when they have a healthy mind and a healthy body and a healthy spirit. Their focus is on setting up their people to be at their best when their best is needed. Instead of overly obsessing about hours or attendance or time tracking, they're more focused on putting their people in the best situation to be successful. The focus is on the performance and how they show up to do their work, not how many hours it took them to do it. They celebrate and recognize that time off, that rest, recovery, days for professional development and learning, etc., all of those have a long-term impact on performance, and so they honor the development and the health of people and the connection that makes, the correlation between higher performance, and therefore they're committed to caring for their people. And then the last of the four characteristics I see has to do with trust and community. You've heard me talk about the fact that we're living and working in very low trusting environments these days. I've cited, another Gallup recent study that had said that only 23% of employees trust their leaders and the direction of their organization, which is amazingly low. Yet what we know is people crave trusting cultures and being a part of communities that help them feel special. And when that's lacking, their performance suffers. And when it is built, when trust and community is built, is invested in, is cultivated, again, the results follow. So what we know about all of those things, and again, those aren't the only characteristics, but if we want to truly prioritize well-being, then we know that we'll search and we'll be strategic about creating meaningful connection and purpose. We know that we'll be strategic about clarity on mission and contribution of your particular role to the overall mission of the organization. We'll get strategic about honoring that connection between health and performance over time. And we'll get in the business of raising the level of trust and the sense of community in how we do what we do. We know that culture shaping matters more than ever within organizations in the world today. And we also know that it doesn't just magically happen. If you've heard me talk about the culture shaping process, where I've referenced the 6 A's of leading change, I've referenced that in my book, Thermostat Cultures, there's a process, and it's not culture shaping isn't a drive-through experience. The best teams, the best leaders, the best organizations commit to bringing their people back together over the long haul to make sure that they are in alignment, that they clear up that vision, they develop their thinking, acting, and interacting. And that leads to creating people that are those kind of thermostat thinkers, those proactive people. And it's amazing then in those kind of cultures how intentional the culture feels. And you know what? The results tend to follow. The other thing I can confirm with to you is that those organizations where the results follow, it tends to lead to greater retainment of people. So they retain their great people, and they also create cultures that people want to be attracted to. And it doesn't happen by accident. It's because they've intentionally led it. So, as always, let me leave you with a couple of questions to ponder from today's episode. What is getting in the way of your team or people's health? What would help support their well-being so they can be at their best when their best is needed? In what ways are you investing in strengthening a culture of trust, community, and care? Cheers to everybody. I hope that this episode got you thinking in some good ways, hopefully breathed some good oxygen into you, gave you some things to think about, and also helped you calibrate your own thermostat for your life and your work. If you have any thoughts, feedback, or if we can be helpful to supporting your team, your organization, and the development of leaders, culture, clarity around mission, vision, values, any of the stuff that we talk about on this podcast, then I hope you'll track us down at jasonvbarger.com, jasonvbarger.com, or email us info@jasonvbarger.com. And if we can connect with you and listen and try to understand how we could best help, perhaps there might be a match along the way to support you and help amplify these messages even further throughout your organization. Lastly, I'll just remind us all to step back, remember, be a thermostat, and breathe good oxygen. Thank you for listening to today's podcast, and I hope the messages and questions stimulate positive change along your path. As always, if these messages resonate with you and add value to your life, I hope you'll help amplify them throughout the world. Please rate, comment, and share on whatever podcast or social media platform you're using, and share this podcast with the people in your life or work who should be part of these conversations. That way, this spirit does, in fact, spread. If these messages or developing leaders and culture would be helpful to you and your organization, please contact us at jasonvbarger.com, jasonvbarger.com. And remember, we are all ambassadors for the culture we want to create in our life and work. We have to own the vision we want to be a part of. The future of leadership is you, is me, is us. Be a thermostat.